All right, welcome, my friends, to episode 647 of Extreme Health Radio. Thanks for joining us, and it's really glad to be back. We're only less than 10 minutes late. We're 9 minutes late, so that's a record for us. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. We're going to be talking with Jacob Liberman, and Dr. Jacob Liberman, we'll introduce him in just a second. I hope you guys all had a great Christmas and holiday season. We took a little time off, as you probably noticed, just to relax and regroup and get plans going for 2020. So hope you guys had a great Christmas and a great holiday time. Now we're all back in the swing of things. And if you guys want the show notes for today's show, we'll put them at extremehealthradio.com/647. And right now we're broadcasting twice a week on Mondays and Fridays live on our YouTube channel. Lots of cool shows coming up. Let me share with you some of those. Coming up on Friday, our good buddy Nathan Walls. And we usually talk with him about light, water, magnetism, biohacking, and frequencies, EMF, and stuff like that. But we're going to be talking with him about what he calls a new revolution, and specifically about vaccines and subjects like that. So that's going to be a good show this Friday. And then, Dr. Dara Bushman, we're going to be talking with her, Rapid Resolution Therapy, Dr. Michelle Lamassa Schrader on recall healing. And so a lot of cool shows coming up. So if you're listening for the first time, make sure to subscribe wherever you are listening or watching so you don't miss any of these shows. And ideally, the best way to subscribe is on extremehealthradio.com, and you can subscribe to our newsletter and get access to every show that we've ever done and upcoming shows, past shows, all that kind of cool stuff. So today we're going to be talking with Dr. Jacob Liberman, and I've seen his stuff on YouTube and his content that he's been creating over the years, and he's the author of a book called Living a Luminous Life, Light, Vision, and Consciousness. And as you guys probably know, we talk a lot about light on this show and how it affects our physiology, our biology, our mitochondria, our ATP production, energy production, and how light is very, very important. And what I would consider almost more important than food, if you consider the fact that when we consume food, we're basically consuming trapped biophotons from the sun energy, and we're consuming light. So Dr. Liberman is an awesome guy. He is a pioneer in the fields of light, vision, and consciousness, the author of Luminous Life. He's also the author of the wildly famous book you probably have all heard about, Take Off Your Glasses and See, as well as Wisdom from an Empty Mind and Light, Medicine of the Future, how we can use it to heal ourselves now, as well as Light Therapies, a complete guide to the healing power of light. If you're watching on YouTube, I put links to all of his books below on Amazon if you guys want to check that out. And his bio goes on and on and on, which it's an incredible body of work he's done. But let me introduce him and turn on his audio. Doc, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's great to be with you today. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've known about your work for some time, and you are in the great state of Hawaii right now, right?
Thank God. As they say, Maui no ka'oi, nothing like it.
Now, do you live in Maui, or do you just frequent often?
No, I live here.
Okay. And how long have you lived there?
21 years.
21 years. Where were you living before?
Aspen, Colorado.
Interesting. Now, in terms of light, even though Maui is much warmer, both places get a lot of light, don't they?
Tremendous amount of light, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it's something we're in Southern California. We've been considering moving perhaps to Idaho or Colorado, something like that. But for me, it's really important. I can't live in a gray. My brother lives in Seattle. I don't know what it is. I can't live up there without any good light. It's crazy.
Well, every physiological function is light dependent.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that light sort of supercharges our ability to create cellular energy in the form of ATP. Not only do we awaken to light in the morning and go to sleep to darkness at night, but everything in between, the release of hormones, everything that's going on in your body is literally triggered not only by light and darkness, but the continually changing spectral characteristics of the solar spectrum. And that's going on at a level we're totally unaware of, because most people think that light primarily enters the body through the eyes.
Uh-huh.
But what we now know is that all the cells in the body have eyes, like the ones in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And they are designed to respond to as little as single photons. Now, since a photon is invisible and it's formless, what it means is that our body is receiving guidance via the most fundamental energy in this universe, and receiving that well before we have any conscious awareness of it, so that all the cells in the body are continually orchestrating their internal function in order to synchronize themselves with Mother Nature, so that in each moment, our physiology, is congruent and coherent with everything else in the life spectrum.
Now, what you said is really interesting. So it sounds like these photoreceptors that we have in our skin and every cell in our body absorb frequencies of light. And so our body is constantly trying to not just mimic, but be in harmony with the natural environment, right? So now we're living in such a state now when we're disconnected, not just from ourselves, but from our environment as well, right? So that disconnection from our environment what is that doing to us, do you think?
Havoc. It's creating havoc because we have two fundamental relationships in life. One is with light, which is the fundamental energy in the universe, and the other one has to do with relationship, or what you call love.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those occur before we're born and at the time of our birth. We are bonding with the energy of light when we're still within our mothers. And so light energy is literally going through the skin and sort of priming the system to be synchronized with light and darkness and everything else when the infant is born. But the moment the infant is born, you go through a process called bonding, where it literally, its heartbeat synchronizes with its mother's heartbeat, so that one of the very first experiences on the part of an infant is the feeling of, thank God I'm home. It's a bonding experience. It's a at oneness experience, if you will. And our whole life is about replicating that. That's why we have this profound thing that happens when we connect with others and we fall in love, whether it's a friend or an intimate partner or whatever. So light and love are two maybe the most powerful energies in the universe in terms of supporting wellness. Of course, the question you bring up has to do with the fact that reality and mentality are not matched. And that's because we've been conditioned for millions of years, and we have been led to believe that life works the way we think rather than the way that it actually works. And so, as you know, the whole field of psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology, or mind-body medicine, has to do with the fact that every state of mind, essentially what we believe and identify with, is being mimicked in our physiology.
Okay.
And so continually our biology is reflecting our state of mind. And so people are continually trying to change their beliefs, their state of mind, and so on to optimize their health. But for me, what I've come to discover is that approach only gives you the appearance of short-term change.
Okay.
The real shift that can occur is when you realize that you are not the content of this function that you refer to as your mind. You are the observer or noticer of that content, along with everything else.
Okay.
So there is something within us that notices what's happening in the outside world. There's also that same something that is aware of what's happening on a feeling level within us.
Mm-hmm.
And that same something is aware when the mind is chattering. We call it thinking, but it's primarily worrying.
Right.
The thing that is aware of it is the source of our seeing and the source of our being. That is in essence who we are. But only when we begin to identify with who we actually are, rather than who we think we are, which is the content of the mind,
Mm-hmm.
then we have this situation that you're describing, where life is going on and
Mm-hmm.
we're totally disconnected from it.
Yeah, it's fascinating because when you think about the fact that human beings are so disconnected from natural environment, you look at like ancient cultures
Right.
and things, and they were always involved in the cycle of life, whether that was hunting their food and putting
Right.
things down, animals and pets, and they were fully connected to the harvests and the seasons and things. And now everything's automated, everything's in technology based, and so we're indoors all the time, and no wonder why we're just so disconnected from the birth process, from the death process, and everything in between. It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason I live on Maui. Aside from the fact that there's a lot of light, when I look out my window right now, there's nothing obstructing my view. So my eyes can just look forever, if you will. And when something is obstructing our view because we're sitting in an office or in a cubicle or in a classroom or looking at a monitor all day,
Uh-huh.
our eyes begin to contract and our entire body begins to contract. You see,
Mm-hmm.
we have two eyes that are designed for three-dimensionality.
Uh-huh.
Now, three-dimensionality, another word for that, is depth perception. And we think of depth perception as being able to notice how far one thing is in relation to us versus something else.
Mm-hmm.
But depth perception has a deeper meaning. It has to do with seeing deeply into things.
Okay.
In other words, it has to do with noticing what's not visible, seeing deeply.
Okay.
And when the two eyes are working together and nothing is obstructing their view, there's this opening that occurs. It's almost like you go into another level of awareness. But the moment that the eyes are blocked,
Mm-hmm.
because I've got a book in front of my face, a monitor, an iPhone, whatever it is, what occurs is our system, which is designed for three-dimensionality and more, gets downgraded to 2 dimensions. And when it does that, your whole system begins to contract. Not only your perceptual system, but physically your body tightens, the cranial fissures start to constrict, breathing gets constricted, and all the things that occur when we are in a state of ease
Mm-hmm.
get downgraded into a state of dis-ease. Just that, just by itself. So think about not only that we're living unnatural lives because we're indoors,
Mm-hmm.
but anywhere you go right now, you'll find that it's almost impossible to make eye contact with someone because they're looking at their handheld device.
Right.
And those devices are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which means that our humanity is shrinking. The aspect of our nature that impacts each other is shrinking because we're compacting ourselves like sardines into a smaller and smaller space. And so it's a very important time to both find a way of utilizing technology rather than being the tool of the technology.
I like that a lot. So that's interesting. I never really heard that before. So let me just make sure that I kind of understand what you just said so that people can understand it more. So it sounds to me like did you say whether it's a book or a piece of technology like a computer screen or phone, the fact that you're bringing something up close to you is causing your worldview to sort of become almost myopic in the sense that like everything is being shrunk down and your ability to see or distinguish depth perception and looking deeper into things goes away because of the closeness that we have these devices?
So it's not almost myopic. It is myopic.
Okay.
Are you nearsighted?
No. Fortunately, I have great vision. So.
Okay, so the glasses you're wearing are strictly just to block some blue from your monitors?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. When you go into an elevator, you're probably fine until you get to the floor you're going to. But what happens if you're in the elevator a little too long? You start to feel claustrophobic, right?
Mm-hmm.
That claustrophobia is occurring because of this constriction that I'm speaking about.
Okay.
So kids sit in classrooms all day. Very often they are windowless classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
People are working in cubicles all day where they don't have windows to allow their eyes to escape. Just constricting your field of vision has an incredibly negative impact on your health and wellness. In fact, the reason that eyesight deterioration is the biggest health epidemic in the world is because of the reason I just mentioned. Keep in mind that before people went to school and had to spend time reading all day, myopia didn't exist.
Really?
Yeah, it only started happening when people were spending their days reading and looking at things that confine their vision to small distances. And this is not just for humans. The initial animal studies showed the same thing. If you take a variety of animals and you put them into a confined environment where their vision is confined to a certain distance, they will become nearsighted. If you take, for instance, naval personnel that have to work in submarines and stay in submarines sometimes for weeks or months at a time, you notice that when they go in, they have excellent eyesight, and when they come out, they're nearsighted. So this is a huge issue because it has to do with our eyes. Not only our eyesight, but there's a reason we say that the eyes are the windows of the soul. Because they are the body's only transparent biological windows that allow light to enter unobstructedly, not only for the purpose of eyesight and vision, but for the purpose of setting the body's biological clock, for essentially, which tells the body what to do, when to do it, and to what degree. There's another aspect that's very, very important. We know the importance of light. What we don't realize is that light is made up of different wavelengths, which we perceive as color. Each of us, and this is a major body of my work over the last 45 years, each of us seemingly are attracted or comfortable with certain wavelengths or what we perceive as certain colors, and uncomfortable with others. what I started discovering in the late 70s is that the colors we're comfortable with literally are the vibrational foundation of the life experiences that we are at ease with. And the colors we're uncomfortable with or we recoil from represent the vibrational basis of unresolved issues. Now, those unresolved issues may have been something that occurred in our lifetime. But from working with over 50,000 people, I've come to realize that most of these unresolved issues occurred with our ancestors. Could have been 10,000 generations before.
Okay.
And they have been energetically passed on from one generation to the next. And so things occur in our life and we think, oh, this happened because I had an argument with my dad when I was 7 or whatever.
Right.
We rarely know the source of these particular things that happen in our life. And so a major part of my work, which is mentoring individuals, utilizes color in a very beautiful way to help them desensitize from the habitual triggers that cause the reactivity that we call stress. And so it has to do with realigning them with the light spectrum so they become more comfortable with the full spectrum of light. And when that occurs, there's a translation and they become more comfortable with the full spectrum of life. And so the things that used to upset them and trigger stress, they get more and more desensitized from that.
That's interesting. So are you saying that there could be like a family trauma? Let's say there was a murder 30 generations ago or something, and somehow that's tied to a color, like maybe that's tied to the color yellow or red or something like that. And then someone today might have an aversion to those colors, not know why. And so what you're saying is that you can work with someone so that when they receive the full spectrum of all light, like from the sun, not only can they receive those full spectrums of that color and they don't dislike that color red anymore, but then also those traumas themselves are somehow dealt with. It goes both ways.
Yeah, and let me take it a little further. So I mentioned in the beginning that every function of the body is light dependent, okay? You started mentioning, even before I spoke, about the mitochondria, the production of ATP, and you were talking about the use of red and near infrared light in the field of photobiomodulation. Well, that occurs if your body's able to receive those wavelengths. But what if your body is unreceptive to those? For instance, people say, well, this is the impact of vitamin C. But what if you take a vitamin C supplement, or you're drinking orange juice or whatever you think you're getting vitamin C from, but your body is not able to assimilate it? And so it goes in your mouth and then it's urinated or defecated out. You don't get the benefit of that. So I found it interesting in the late 70s when I was first introduced to the concept of the chakras. I noticed that in all of the images of the chakras, each of the chakras had a designated color. I tried to find some scientific substantiation for that. I could not find any, and so I sort of forgot about it. Then I started to notice that people had preferences to certain colors and not to others.
Okay.
And so I took the subjective response and I said, let's see if we can measure that objectively. So I hooked them up to physiological monitors. I mean, I'm going back now 40 years. And then I would have them look at colors or think of colors, and I would notice when their body would have a stress reaction. And what I noticed is that when they thought of or looked at that wavelengths that they perceived as colors they were at ease with, their body just started breathing deeper and more easily. Their heart slowed down, their blood pressure reduced to something very calming.
Mm-hmm.
But when they thought of or looked at a wavelength of light that they perceived as a color they were uncomfortable with, their body would have a stress reaction, a literal stress reaction, as if they saw something that really triggered them. And so I started looking at that deeper. And when I started looking at my patient's overall picture back then, I found a very interesting thing. The colors they were uncomfortable with very often was representative of the chakra where they had physical symptoms. So for instance, if someone said, I'm very uncomfortable with red or oranges, very often they would say, you know, I have lower back issues, or I've had reproductive issues if it was a woman, or I've had chronic bladder problems, or I've had fibroids in that part of the body.
Interesting.
And this was not something that I came up with as an idea. This was something that I noticed after working with thousands of people, that the correlation was very significant. So what I'm suggesting is, when we're uncomfortable with certain wavelength of the light spectrum, which we perceive as color, my sense is that it means that we're not allowing that to get into our system.
Okay.
And so the parts of our physiology that are nourished by those particular wavelengths remain in the dark. And you know that when something is in darkness, it starts to shrivel up. It starts to malfunction. And so I think many of our physical and physiological issues are related to an inability to receive certain portions of the light spectrum. To give you an idea, in 2017, the Nobel Prize was for physiology or medicine was won by 3 US scientists that demonstrated that on a molecular level, plants, animals, and humans are continually using light to harmonize their physiology so that they're at one with the cosmos, if you will, if they're at one with Mother Nature. And that's the way our health is optimized. So if you're not able to receive some portion of the spectrum, you're going to create something like malnutrition, but maybe you could call it malillumination. Okay. And it's not just from a lack of light, but a lack of certain portions of the light spectrum. And so I work with people with this. I created a little kit that has very simple glasses to use at home. And it allows people to, first of all, notice the truth of this by actually going through a process where they literally test themselves and they can see what I'm talking about. They can feel it in their own system. And then they go through a process to gradually desensitize.
That's super, super interesting. Yeah, this whole light piece for me is completely fascinating. And if you guys are listening on a podcast version, this is episode 647. We're with Dr. Jacob Liberman. His website, if you guys want to check it out, is it's actually jacobliberman.org, and we'll put those in the show notes. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now, and what I'm curious about is my sort of intimation at the beginning of the show about biophotons and food capturing those biophotons and light and consuming food, which is consuming light indirectly. And so I want to ask Dr. Liberman that after the break. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. If you are, please pass it on to your friends. I'd greatly appreciate that. And we're going to be right back right after this.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging @Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
Yeah, come hang out with us on Instagram while we still have our account. I'd greatly appreciate that. That'd be a lot of fun. We share a lot of insights into what we're doing and all the stuff we're up to on Instagram. So if you guys want to tag this show, it is at Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. And that way you can keep up to date with our growing little family and all the fun stuff we do there. So I wanted to share with you guys, I don't know if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know that we promote and love our far infrared sauna. And sauna therapy is one of the best ways to detoxify heavy metals and toxins and chemicals, poisons that get trapped in our fat cells. And here's Dr. Randy Tent talking about just that.
When people talk about sweating, most people, look at this as an isolated event. You're detoxing properly with, the infrared sauna, making sure nutritionally on the inside, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 3 essential fats. Making sure that you're closing down those pathways is just as important as detoxing, because when people start detoxing their body, that's chelation. So when people want to come in and do all this chelation, I'm like, you understand, metals and minerals are cousins. I'll be pulling both out of you at the same time. So when you start chelating, these deficient people are just toxic. You're actually even pulling their minerals down at the same time, and they don't understand that. You got to push the machine like the doctors you were talking about. And learning to sweat is a fantastic way to detoxify. They claim you can get about 50% of the poisons out of you through your skin if you sweat successfully. And with you got a very intelligent client audience here. And the more fat you got, the more places you have to hold stuff. You want to try to get as much fat off you can because you don't store stuff. And I wanted to go to the bathroom and show my steel cylinder. I'm going to use the steel cylinder as much as I can because I don't want any more plastic than I have to. And people can talk about a safe plastic, and I understand there's safe plastics, but I don't know if that safe plastic was sitting out in the sun, because I can taste some of that plastic that sits in the sun and it tastes funny. We gave plastic to our kids, plastic pacifiers to our kids, plastic bottles to our kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plastic everywhere.
And aluminum lined juice boxes that I've seen on the kids.
I love Dr. Tent. He's such a fireball. So the sauna that we use and recommend, we sell different saunas on our site, biocharge.me. But the one that we love and use the most is the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. And this is just a great sauna because for so many different reasons. Like, it's portable. It heats up within like 30 seconds, so you don't have to preheat it. You can control the temperature. There's 2 different switches, and you can control and turn on and off the heaters, and you can loan it to a friend. It doesn't take up much space. You can break it down. But what I love about it is your head sits out of it or stays out of it. So that way you can watch documentaries or TV shows or whatever you want to watch, and the time goes by really quickly. And it's just an amazing way to sweat. And you'll start sweating. I mean, I start sweating in about 5 or 10 minutes during the summer, and it just is an incredible. I was in there last night for about 35 minutes before bed, and it's just a great way to detoxify your body. And I'm just a huge fan of the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. So if you guys want to get access to it, if you're listening on YouTube, there's links down below in the description for this video. If you are listening on the podcast, we'll put links at extremehealthradio.com/647. That's the show page for today's show, 647. And one other thing I wanted to share with you is blue blocking glasses that were just mentioned a couple minutes ago.
You've got the optical systems you're looking through, and then, as you say, the screen time. When people use their digital device at night in dim light, the pupils dilate more. And so more of that blue light is going to get in because of the dilated pupil. But they're not using blue blockers, and they're not, doing eye supplements or eating foods that protect their eyes. So this blue light, it's a chaotic, very fast wavelength. It's going to damage the tissue in our eyes, no question about it. It's really critical. The lens of our eye, our original hardware, has a pigment that blocks the damaging blue light. But those plastic lenses that they put in the eye do not have the pigment that blocks the damaging blue light. So when people get the cataract surgery, then they're more susceptible to getting macular degeneration because that blue light can damage the macula. So they need to wear blue blocking lenses and protect their eyes, because these plastic lenses leave you wide open to be vulnerable to get the damage from the blue light. We're not sleeping well. We're exposed to all this blue light. So take your pick. There's probably, with all the people you have on your show, you could probably put that together and say, well, these are contributing factors in why our eyes are letting us down.
Yeah.
It's all of the above and more.
It is, friends, and that's why we have 3 companies that we work with on biocharge.me, and one of them is Blue Blocks, the other one is True Dark, and the third one is a company called Raw Optics, and I have and use every one of those pairs of glasses, and the ones I'm wearing now are from a company called Blue Blocks. So if you guys are interested in like stylish glasses that protect from the high frequency blue light spectrum, Blue Blocks has some really, really great pairs, as well as the Raw Optics and True Dark too. So they have different custom lenses for those of you that may have prescription glasses, and they also have nighttime and daytime ones, which I wear as well, depending on your environment in the daytime, if you're in an office, for example. So lots of cool options for protective eyewear that protects, like Dr. Lieberman was talking about, the eye clock in your body, and how that affects your circadian rhythm, ATP production and energy production, which is that, and so much more. And so, something super simple, something super easy to do is to just block blue light during the day and night. So check out Blue Blocks, and I think there's a discount code as well. So if you go to biocharge.me and go to the blue light section, and you'll see Raw Optics, you'll see the True Dark as well as the Blue Blocks, and you can enter in the coupon codes that are there on that page to get a little discount as well. So we'll be right back right after this.
This is Extreme Health Radio, where we're 100% listener supported. Make sure to join the Extreme Health Academy with thousands of other listeners and get real solutions for your health challenges.
So for those of you crazy, wacky, wild people that want to take your health to new levels, and you're crazy like we are, the Extreme Health Academy is just such a great place to go, because it's really, really fun, and we get to help each other out in the forums there, and I think that's really important to have that support in our community, and to be able to get access to high-level training as well, taught by Dr. John Bergman, as well as other people as well, and I'm in there almost every single day, so it's really, really a great place. And so there's a free coupon code for a 14-day trial if you guys want to check it out, extremehealthacademy.com, and then use the code EHR14. And hey, Doc, I wanted to ask you, was I correct when I said at the beginning, I've heard this in multiple places and read it too, that when you're eating food, that food basically captures photonic energy from the sun, biophotons from the sun, and stores it. And then when we eat the food, people think the food is nourishing us, but many people have said that we are eating stored light is really what's going on.
That's exactly it.
Is that true?
That's exactly it, yes. All matter is frozen light. So when we're eating food, the nutritional benefit of the food is probably directly related to the aliveness of the light content. So when we talk about eating not only organic foods, but fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and so on, you're talking about something that the light content is still high. When something has been sitting for a long time, I mean, we're in a culture where we use a lot of supplements. And I have nothing against supplements, but you're taking a pill that's inside of a bottle where there's no light, no air, and you wonder, what am I actually getting from this? So the best nutrients are directly from fresh food that is clean. And, each of us is designed a little different. So, for one person, a vegan diet might be perfect. For another person, it might be a paleo. It might be totally different. But yes, food is essentially frozen light. And about 2/3 of our of the energy that our body creates is created from light ingestion, and 1/3 from food ingestion. And how do I know that? in 1994, I was traveling in Australia, and I was introduced to a group of people. They had brought me in to do a weekend workshop in Australia, and in Adelaide, Australia. And what I noticed when I got there is these people didn't eat. I'd heard of such things, but I'd never actually experienced someone. And I'm not talking about people fasting. I'm saying that these people did not consume food.
Really?
And there were 18 people that attended this workshop over the weekend, claiming amazing types of changes in their body from not eating, that they were living off of light. And so when I got to Perth, Australia, after that event, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I decided to do an experiment. And I did this myself for about 9 weeks. I didn't eat. And I discovered some very profound things, which is that our body can live off of energy other than what we consume. And now there's a lot of science behind it at this time. And again, I'm not suggesting to your listeners that they should stop eating or anything like that, because I like to eat and I eat every day.
Yeah.
But what I am suggesting is that this experiment that I did in 1994 allowed me to again discover that the paradigm that we are often conditioned into is just an idea, that things may actually not work in this particular way. And that demonstrated to me a much greater power of light than I had ever considered before. The bulk of my work over the last 50 years has not been based on other people's work that preceded me, even though I've been influenced by all of that. But most of my work has come out of direct experience. Any of your listeners that have read any of my books realize that I had a very profound and spontaneous shift in my eyesight 44 years ago in 1976, after wearing glasses for 9.5 years. My eyesight improved 300%. And it occurred without any changes to the physical measurements of my eyes.
Really?
In other words, I still measured to be nearsighted and have a large amount of astigmatism, but I could actually see 300% better measurably.
Really?
Now, if that would have occurred for just a moment, you would have said, oh my God, what caused that?
Right.
But I'm now 72. I've never had a pair of glasses on my face for distance or reading since that day. I used to be nearsighted with a large amount of astigmatism. Now I'm farsighted with even more astigmatism. I spend much of my day reading and looking at things up close, driving, and so on. I travel all over the world, and I see well, and none of my eye doctors can explain this. Why am I sharing this? The importance of the sharing is that for me, what has really influenced my life are not the ideas of other people, but the direct experiences that have stopped me in my tracks because they dissolved everything that I was led to believe was true.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier the word beliefs. It's a very common word today. People say, oh, you have to change your beliefs and so on.
Right.
But the word belief means the same as concept, theory, idea, or thought. What's fascinating is the word that means the opposite of belief is truth. Our beliefs are just theories that are continually changing. They are not an ultimate truth. What I'm interested in is truth beyond opinion. What I'm interested in is something that I know by heart, something that has impacted me at a level that while I may not be able to explain, my physiology, my life, my way of being reflects that. That for me is, that's what the most important thing is for me these days, and the kinds of things that I attempt to share with audiences or people that I have the pleasure of working with, because we've got so many gimmicks and so many things that we do, and then it works for 2 weeks, and then we get on to the next best thing. And for me, these very, very fundamental truths are incredibly powerful. Like during the break, you had the gentleman speaking about sweating. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that when you sweat, your body is detoxifying. You don't even have to read a journal about that. Everybody knows that. It's sort of a natural kind of thing. So my brand of science is common sense and direct experience. And that's the kind of things that move me. So I'm 72. I see well without glasses, and I know very few people that have that situation. So for me, part of my life's journey is to share some of these discoveries and to encourage others not to believe me or anyone else, but to use this as an inspiration for experimenting, to find out what's actually truth for you.
I love that. We're with Dr. Jacob Liberman. This is episode 647. And I think what we'll do now is we'll take some listener questions from YouTube. So if you guys are watching on Facebook, we'll take questions from YouTube. That way we can keep everything in one spot. We'll kind of jump around a little bit. But and also, if you guys want to call up on Skype, our handle is Extreme Health Radio. And you can ask a question on Skype, and we'll bring you in the show if you're brave enough to do that. But before we take questions, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, if you have any questions for Dr. Liberman right now, make sure to type them in all caps so that I can see them. And so go ahead and type them in now. And then, Dr. Liberman, I wanted to ask you, when you were talking about in 1976, when you had that change in your eyesight, what happened? Like, what was there an event that happened, a trauma, something?
No, in 1971, I was introduced to meditation. And at the time, I thought it was just a stress-reducing tool, so I started meditating every day. Mm-hmm. I soon realized that meditation was really just about noticing.
Okay.
It was about discovering that you were actually noticing when the mind was active and so on. It wasn't that you were thinking. It was that you were noticing this thinking going on.
I see. And
so meditation became a powerful tool in the early 70s, and I used to do it every day. And one day, it was a Sunday, I took my glasses off, I sat down, I closed my eyes, and began my daily meditation practice. And somewhere in the process, it was almost as though I disappeared. The only thing that was evident was that there was a sense of clarity. One, even though my eyes were closed, I was aware of myself and everything in the room, as if I was looking at it, except my eyes were closed. Huh. The second thing that I noticed is that, when you look at something, like for instance, when you're looking at me on the monitor, you're there, I'm here, and then there's this empty space in between. Mm-hmm. Well, during this experience, what I notice is that the empty space is actually not empty. It's absolutely filled with light, and I could see it almost like the whole field was sparkling. And then there was an awareness. I couldn't tell from where the seeing was happening. When you're looking at something, you assume I'm here, I'm looking at something out there.
Right.
Well, during this experience, it felt like the seeing was happening everywhere.
How bizarre.
And when my eyes opened, my eyesight was clear, and I drove to my office, and at that time I needed glasses on my license in order to drive.
Oh, okay.
I drove to my office without my glasses on. I checked myself on about 10 different eye charts I had never seen at 20 feet away, and I was consistently reading one line better than 20/20, which was a 300% improvement.
Wow.
But when I actually examined my eyes, and I thought, well, if I can see clearly, it's going to show no prescription. I was amazed when I came out from behind the instrument and realized that even though I was seeing perfectly clear, my eyes were measuring nearsighted and astigmatism almost identical to what was in my glasses. In other words, the optics of my eyes didn't change, but through some way that I can't understand, I access the source of the seeing within us. And as I said, if I went to any eye doctor in the world, every eye doctor would find that I'm farsighted and have a significant amount of astigmatism, and no one would be able to understand how I see as well as I see with that correction. And the only thing that I can share with you is maybe I can share it by sharing with you a piece that was written 1,500 years ago by the third Zen patriarch. And the first verse of this said, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, the world is clear and undisguised. Make the slightest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, hold no opinions for or against anything." What the writer was saying is that the inability to see is related to having a specific point of view. But when there's no point of view, when there's just an openness, which is the way the source of our seeing sees, then a level of clarity beyond words occurs. And in the Bible, Jesus was quoted as describing this state as the peace that passeth all understanding.
Mm-hmm.
A level of clarity that you cannot explain. So a lot of my work is to share with people different things that might allow them to tap into this aspect of their own humanity.
That's super, super interesting. We got a question from Big Fat Mama in the chat room. So this is kind of takes a little bit of a turn. What kind of breathing practices do you recommend, if any?
None. You were born breathing. First of all, breathing is involuntary. So anything you do to breathe in a certain way is actually opposed to the design of your physiology.
Okay.
You see, we're not actually breathing. Life is breathing us. Let me explain. When we think of breathing, we think of the respiratory cycle, the lungs expanding and contracting. But you know, if you look at your body, you'll notice that the expansion and contraction is occurring in the cranial fissures. It's occurring in the heart. It's occurring in every organ, every cell, every gland, every blood vessel in the entire body. When breathing occurs, the entire body inflates and deflates. Now that's also occurring for all living things, every tree, every animal, every creature, the earth itself is continually undulating, expanding and contracting. And in fact, the entire universe is doing the same thing. So this cycle that we think of as breathing, I call the frequency of wellness. It's the fundamental rhythm of the universe that is entrained into all living things. So in response to your listener's question, when we stop trying, when the worrying ceases, when we realize that change is occurring without us, then the breathing begins to normalize. Trying to breathe in one way or another, it's a nice technique. For instance, if you breathe a certain way, yes, you can calm yourself down when you're having a panic attack, and all those things are helpful. But the bottom line at the end of the day, it's good to have stepping stones, just don't take the stones with you. Eventually, we drop all of the tools, we drop all of the techniques, and then something natural occurs. We don't actually arrive by taking this step, this step, this step, this step, and this step. It's a paradigm shift. Literally, we're in one place and then we're in another place, and we probably have no idea how we got there. Most of the creative insights that have resulted in the greatest inventions of our time, they did not occur because someone had a good idea. They occurred because while someone wasn't looking, there was an insight, an epiphany that came to them free of charge, and then moved them to follow it in a certain direction. So we are literally breathed, and we are literally inspired by life to move in the directions that we do. And this is why in Luminous Life, I talk about the fact that what's catching our eye is actually looking for us. It's not us looking for the light. It's the light looking for us to guide us on our journey through life, so each of us can fulfill our purpose for being.
That's super, super interesting. You know, it kind of makes me wonder and think about like times like, you know, the story of J.K. Rowling and how she wrote all of those Harry Potter series books. And I guess the story was that she was on a train somewhere traveling through Germany or Europe or something like that. And then she got this thought, or a thought was downloaded to her. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying about insights. And she just like wrote down, young schoolboy wants to become a wizard and attend wizardry school or something like that. And then everything just started flowing. And I remember her talking about how that process started. And she said that it was like everything was almost kind of just being downloaded to her, like just like what you're saying now. That's a fascinating thing, right? Where we think these ideas live within us, but maybe we're just downloading them from some other place, right?
You know, Justin, you and I, for people who are listening, they think that we're having a conversation, but something is speaking each of us. You know, all of a sudden a question comes through you. Where it comes from, we don't know. And then that touches some part of me where the response is automatic. It isn't that I'm thinking about what to say and then come up with an answer. The response is inseparable from the request. So, you know, the Harry Potter books are really an insight of what all of our lives are about, which is a search for truth, a search for awakening. How do we uncover the wizard, the God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, that is miraculously moving and animating the whole universe? That's really the journey of all of our lives, is to uncover truth. And that's certainly what my life has been about and continues to be about. That's what inspires me to have these kinds of beautiful conversations, not knowing what wants to be expressed through us, but just allowing that process to occur.
Mm-hmm. Interesting question here, or not really a question. It's kind of more of an insight from Temple Health on YouTube. And he or she says, going back to what we're talking about, the disconnection from everyone on the earth, not just from themselves and from each other, but from the earth itself. They say here, it seems like an intentional plan to cut everybody off from everyone else and from the sun. Is this part of the 528 frequency, light and human love connection?
I don't know what the 528 frequency is that she is referring to.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is this. There's definitely a disconnect that we're noticing. Just look at what's going on in our own government and in governments around the world. And you'll see that on some level we've lost touch with what it means to be human, to be humane. So for me, it doesn't make any difference what I think it might be. What makes a difference is when I go to my favorite breakfast place in the morning and I notice that the staff there takes such beautiful care of me.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a difference is to not only feel the impact of those people wanting to do something beautiful for me, but I notice there's a natural part of me that just wants to embrace them in whatever way I can, whether it be with a good tip or to let them know that their moms and dads did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's the way that we have an impact that's simultaneously planting seeds of goodness while something else is going on that we look around and we say, how can people do this? So these things that we are noticing have been going on throughout history. There's always someone being born when someone dies. There's always someone helping someone and someone else maybe taking something.
Mm-hmm.
The key for us is if your heart is in contact inseparably with life, then your job is to plant a seed of goodness every moment that you feel it. And so I don't know if there's a way of eliminating the kinds of horrors that we see in the world, but each of us knows in what way it comes natural to them. You know, what it is that they do by heart, that they know by heart. And however, whatever our life's purpose is, that's our contribution to the equation.
Mm-hmm.
to do as much good as we can.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Well, Doc, thanks so much for your time and effort and your energy today, mostly. And so if people want to find you, it's jacoblieberman.org, right? Is that the correct?
Yeah. They can email us at info@jacoblieberman.org. They might want to visit the website. It's not a marketing site. It's just a place where they might find it nice to just look through and so on. And we're just trying to share something that we hope will make people smile.
That's awesome. And do you work individually with people? I think I saw you got some consultations and stuff going.
Yes. Most of what I do is I work with a very small number of people that I mentor. I have a life mentoring program where I share with them all the things that I've learned and give them ways to uncover for themselves what it is. We have an epidemic. Most of us think there's something wrong with us. Something profound occurs when we're able to accept ourselves just the way we are, who we are and how we are.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my work is really just to help people see themselves in a new light, because the profound changes of light are less related to what we do and more related to the epiphanies, the aha moments that we have in our life.
Mm-hmm. Well, Doc, thanks again so much for your time and for sharing your book. And it's cool, so people can are all 4 books still available on Amazon?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, cool. So they can go to Amazon and support. Do you sell the books on your website too, or just on Amazon?
No, we don't sell any books. All the books are sold by booksellers.
Okay.
That's their job in the world. My job is just to share, if I can, some things that touch people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Doc. Again, I'll be in contact with your folks there, and we'll give you the link as soon as it becomes available. And thanks again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so very much, and thank you to your listeners. I always feel blessed when I have this opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Doc, and we will be in contact soon.
Have a grateful day.
Awesome. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
So there you go, guys. Dr. Jacob Liberman. I hope you enjoyed the show. Cool guy, right? I love the work that he's doing with light. Got a few insights from that, and I hope you did too. I want to share a couple of those after the break, but we're going to take a little break right now, and this is kind of our little opportunity to not talk about the guests. It's kind of like when you're in a conversation, with friends, and then one of the friends leaves and everyone talks about the guy that left. But it's kind of like that in a virtual way. So I'm curious about your thoughts about him and what he had to say, and I have a few insights as well. I hope you enjoyed the show. This was episode 647, and it's good to be back. It's good to be back, and we'll be right back right after this.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. Thanks for being on this health journey with us, and don't forget to check out biochargeme.com for hundreds of health products to build a better you.
So biocharge.me is how we keep the show free. So your support on that website is our store, and we're adding products all the time to it, and we would greatly appreciate it if you're in the market for different products. Visit our store, because what a lot of people don't realize is that it costs a lot of money to produce these shows and to prepare for them and offer them and produce them and all that. So it takes a lot of money. So when you support us by going through our store, it really helps us continue focusing more time on the podcast and all that good stuff too. So make sure to check out biocharge.me anytime you're in the market for a health-related product, whether it's a blender, juicer, rebounder, an ozone machine. We have so many cutting-edge products, saunas, exercise equipment. We have so many different categories of products on there. So when you go there, it really, really does support the show. So I wanted to share with you about one of the things that I have been using, and I do use all the time, is our Juve red light therapy device. And this is an incredible piece of what they call biohacking technology. I don't really like that term, biohacking. I don't know what it is. I feel like it makes the people think the human body is like a machine, and we're clearly not a machine. And it also infers that there's something wrong with our physiology, that you have to hack it because somehow it's broken. But for lack of a better term, biohacking is a big word in today's space. But listen to what Dr. Stephanie Seneff had to say about red light therapy on our show a little while ago.
Your commercial was interesting to me because it turns out that infrared light is a very special light that grows the exclusion zone. I don't know if you've talked to Gerald Pollack. Have you ever interacted with Gerald Pollack?
Yeah, he's been on the show. He's great.
Yeah, because he's the one that I learned this from one of his papers, that when you expose the body to infrared light, and they found that the exclusion zone water, which is that special structured water that's created by the sulfates in the blood, that grew by a factor of 4 in the response to the red light, the infrared light, which is going to be in the red light. They're going to have some infrared there. And one of the key benefits of the red light might be increasing that exclusion zone, which is going to actually increase the strength of the battery, which is is going to supply more energy to the cells, because that exclusion zone is the basis of the battery, I believe, that supplies electricity to the body.
Yeah, it helps the mitochondria create ATP, and it just
exactly.
shrinks the respiratory proteins. I mean, light therapy is huge. Yeah, it's interesting because when you start looking further into light therapy and you look into like Morley Robbins' work with copper and iron, and you start realizing that light, specifically the frequencies of red light, affect copper metabolism in the body, and copper regulates iron, and an excess of unbound, or I should say bound iron in the body stored in our tissues causes the cells, much like lipofuscin and things like this, causes the cells to be deprived of oxygen. And when there's oxidation in the body, there's an inflammatory process going on. The cells, the mitochondria, cannot produce energy in complex 5 of the mitochondria, and then you start having a lack of energy and oxidative stress and a lack of oxygen to the cells. And what helps to reduce all of this is the frequency of light that is red, and the frequency, and that is what we're starved from in today's culture, because in today's culture we're blue light toxic. Everything we look at is LED and fluorescent bulbs and all of these things that are damaging not just our eye clock, but our mitochondrial function, our respiratory proteins, the distance between those respiratory proteins, which is causing an elongation of those, which is causing a lack of the body to create energy. And without energy, your body can't be healthy. You don't have the immune system strength. And so what this does is it helps to restore your body at the mitochondrial level to not just hold on to more light, but like Stephanie was saying, to produce that exclusion zone water, which is the water that your body makes. That's the fourth phase of water, which is what Dr. Pollack talks about. So it's an incredible piece of technology to be able to increase collagen production. It helps to repair skin damage. It helps with scars and wrinkles and wound healing. It's anti-aging, reduces joint inflammation. It helps with infertility. I can't say it cures any of these things, but I can tell you that this is a device that I've been using. And Juve has really cool because they're modular devices, which means you can build them over time, and you can get devices that go all the way around your body. And it's really an incredible piece of technology that I use every single day for about 10 minutes. That's my therapy sessions, for about 10 minutes every single day. So it's what I recommend for everybody. And I'm just a really big fan of the Juve red light therapy devices. And then also another thing that I just love so much is this colostrum. Have you guys tried the colostrum from Surthrival yet? We have this big container here. We feed it to our kids. It is just an incredible substance, because what it does is it has two main sort of functions, although it has many functions. But the two main things that it's sort of known for are gut health, so improving gut permeability. So that is the lack of inflammatory proteins that get absorbed through the gut wall into your bloodstream, causing inflammation and autoimmune issues and things like that. So it helps to heal and seal your gut, but then it also is incredible for your immune system. Listen to what Daniel Vitalis has to say about it.
So colostrum is the first food that all baby mammals receive, or all baby mammals, natural baby mammals receive. So when we were born, our mother's breasts were initially filled with colostrum before actually there was any milk available to us. And in an ideal circumstance, that's the first thing we drink. Well, the same is true for all mammals, and it's especially true for cows. One of the interesting things about bovine colostrum, cow colostrum, is it has a really unique impact on human health. This has been studied for a really long time. There are literally thousands of studies in the scientific literature showing the effects of bovine colostrum on human health, on human immunity, on restoring the gut lumen, the gut tract, repairing damage to the gut, and helping to restore health after things like IBS or Crohn's or diverticulitis or any of the sort of inflammatory bowel diseases. And it does this through a number of actions, but primarily through the fact that it contains all of the known mammalian growth factors. And these proteins that we call growth factors initiate growth in tissue throughout the body. And each type of tissue in our body has a specific growth factor. Well, they're all found in colostrum.
Yeah, so it's a tremendous food, and I think it should be part of all of your daily diets. You can use it in smoothies, like fruit smoothies. You can use it in like coffee and chocolate. You can bake with it. I was just showing, if you guys are watching on video live, you can see you can make pancakes with it. It's just so super versatile. You can just add water to it and drink it as a post-workout recovery drink. it's just an awesome, awesome thing. And I just love it. Even if this were like a bad food, I'd probably still consume it because it makes drinks so creamy and rich. It's just such a good addition to anything that you're consuming, whether it's food or smoothies or juices. So Colostrum, I can't recommend it enough. I'd really recommend it during the fall and winter season too, so you can boost your immune system. It's just a great tool to have to give to your family. We give it to our kids, and we add it to their milk, and they just absolutely love it. So make sure to check out the Thrival Colostrum. And if you are listening on a podcast version, I'll put a link to it at extremehealthradio.com/647. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's links down in the description for the Colostrum, as well as the Blue Blocks and the Juve Red Light Therapy, along with the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. And if you're watching on Facebook, just go over to extremehealthradio.com as soon as it becomes available /647.
Extreme Health Radio is your #1 resource for cutting-edge biohacks, news, and information about how to upgrade every area of your health. Subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.
Yeah, so when you subscribe to our newsletter, we give you a really special offer that I can't really talk about in public right now. But if you subscribe, if you go to extremehealthradio.com, you'll see areas for you to subscribe everywhere. And I highly recommend that because we just don't know how long we're going to have YouTube and Facebook and all these social accounts. If you guys have been following what's been going on, it's been kind of crazy. It's just, you start seeing the grips tighten. Especially if you follow what's been going on with the vaccine and the different laws that are happening. It's becoming more and more constrictive, and I'm seeing the writing on the wall for lots of different things, lots of different ways in which media is being censored and suppressed, and you can just see it. You see it everywhere. And so we don't know how long we're going to have our YouTube channel. This is why we're putting all of our best of episodes inside of our Extreme Health Academy. And Dr. Bergman's entire YouTube channel, we're currently migrating all of his lectures over to the Academy as well. Because we just don't know. Because, Dr. Bergman and myself, we talk about things like vaccines, and we talk about things that are major, major issues in today's world. And, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if we got censored and deplatformed. And that's really what they're trying to do. So what they try to do, YouTube and these types of platforms, is they first start with demonetizing your video. So for those of us that have ads turned on, it helps us pay for the work that we do. So then they remove your ability to do that. And then what they do is then they just tell you that they've removed your video. So they've just scrubbed certain videos off of our channel. And then if you get a strike, which is what they do when they remove a video, you get 3 strikes and they just remove your entire channel. And many of you guys probably know that they did this with Alex Jones. And so it's becoming more and more type of thing. And then they're also working on the search end of things, where when you search for videos with a certain title, like you can put the title of a video on YouTube sometimes in all quotes, and it won't even show up, the one you're looking for. With that exact title, if you put it in quotes, it's going to search for only what's in those quotes. And sometimes I've done searches where the videos don't even show up. And so it's they're doing it's a concerted effort to scrub the internet with information that's challenging the system. And it's so sad. It's such a bummer. And this is why we're moving to our private academy. This is why we're migrating all of our best of shows over to YouTube. I'm sorry, to the Extreme Health Academy. And there's going to come a time when you won't be able to go through the first 10 pages of search results without seeing some sort of censorship happen. So that's why I encourage you guys to sign up to our newsletter. That way, if they remove us from social, then you'll still have access to our shows via our newsletter. So that's something I highly recommend you do. So I'm curious what you guys thought. I had a couple insights during that show that I thought was interesting. I thought it was interesting, too, that he brings, we talk a lot about light, and how it affects, physically the mitochondria and the ATP production of the mitochondria, and how the body uses light on a physical way. But it's interesting to get a more deeper sort of spiritual, philosophical approach to how light is affecting our our biology as well. So I thought that was really interesting. And I thought it was interesting too what he talked about, like his experience when he was meditating, and all of a sudden he had perfect vision, 300% noticeably and measurably better after a meditation session, which I thought was really interesting too, because if you guys are familiar, there's a doctor by the name of Dr. John Sarno, and he's he was out of New York, I believe, and he's written a number of books. What are the names of his books, Dr. John Sarno? I think one was called Healing Back Pain. And it was fascinating because what he talked about was this aspect of our health, our physiology, our actual structure of our body being tied to emotional trauma. And he's sort of famous for his work with sciatica. And he was working with many, many patients with sciatica and had complete reversals and turnaround with it based on these exercises that he would give his patients. And these exercises included writing letters to the people who were involved in the source of trauma in their life. So let's say somebody was raped as a child, or maybe they were beaten by their father or mother as a child. And so part of the exercises that he would do and give to his patients was simply writing letters in a certain way. They're outlined in his book, Healing Back Pain. And these people would have incredible turnarounds. Like they were able to walk again. Experience full level of motility and mobility that they haven't had in 20, 30 years, all based on writing letters to people and releasing emotional trauma, which I think is a sort of a forgotten part of health, because that's kind of where the deep work is, right? The deep work is focusing and getting into the traumas and the spiritual, emotional aspects of how these things affect our biology. Because it's easy to change our diet and to focus on a lot of the things that we talk about on the show. Like it's easy to go to, get a Green Wave dirty electricity filter or a Stetzer filter. It's easy to get a blender and start making blended drinks. It's easy to, make mushroom tea and do all these things and get blue blocking glasses, and all this stuff is easy to do. But it's not easy to find the source of your emotional trauma and deal with that. That's the hard part, And so it's interesting that Dr. John Sarno's work kind of correlates with Dr. Liberman here in relationship to that, which leads me to believe or to think that there's got to be a connection between all of our physical ailments and health challenges to an emotional, spiritual connection to that. There has to be. There's no way there's not. So the real question comes, how much of an impact do those things play? And is that true across the board? Like, is it possible that someone could have a physical condition that's not tied to an emotional trauma? I guess it would be, but I would also say that just about everyone who has a health challenge also is dealing with some sort of physical, or I should say spiritual, emotional trauma of some kind. I also thought it was interesting too what he talked about insights. First of all, let me check the chat room and see what you guys are talking about in there and see if you guys have any thoughts about that. Beck from the Academy is here. Darren is here as well. Good to see you guys. Monkey Ace, good to see, or Whiskey Ace, I should say. Good to have you guys here. This is cool. A lot of cool people in here. Angie is here. Jesse B. Breatharians. A lot of cool people in the chat room. Cool. Wow, Big Fat Mama. I've started Buteyko breathing and find I'm trying to catch my breath a lot. Anyone else practice Buteyko breathing, adding to Wim Hof and box breathing methods? Interesting. Yeah. Miss Hill, good to see you. If you guys have any questions, you can always call up on Extreme Health Radio on Skype, and I can hang out and chat with you. Big Fat Mama says, missed so much of the show, got to rewatch and replay. I was curious about his glasses and eyesight. I'm using a protocol to correct my vision. I'm currently at -3 from -6.5. Yeah, we had we had an entire workshop in the Extreme Health Academy about vision, and we got a lot of cool information in there as well. As far as the Buteyko breathing, we had a number of different people on our show talk about the Buteyko breathing. Big Fat Mom, I'm curious, have you tried mouth taping during your sleep? That's a really powerful practice that I do. You tape your mouth shut while you breathe, and the reason behind that is not just because we're anatomically designed to breathe through our mouth, but what it does is it changes not just the pH, but it changes the acids in your blood. It changes the constituents of oxygen and the transfer of oxygen in your blood. It changes the gases in your blood. So breathing through your nose is one of the best things you can do for your health, and it's free. You don't have to do anything for it. So what is the lady's name, Maria says, that connected the tongue to our feet? Good question. Yeah, that's a really good question, Ria. There was a lady on our show recently that I remember, and I can't remember. If you guys know in the chat room, where she did a, oh, you know who it was? I just remembered. Let me go through our Instagram, because she was a myofascial therapist. Let me find her. Whoops. Let me find her. Good question, Mia. I appreciate that. So I shared a little clip. Most of the time, I'll put a little clip on Instagram of our shows on there, so that you guys can kind of get a little teaser of what's going on in the shows. But I'll bring up our Instagram, and there's I don't recall. We've talked to so many people. This was probably got to be a good year ago. But what was interesting was she had some sort of X-ray or some sort of, like, you know, when you go to those body museums and they have a diagram of, or actual the fascia of human beings that have died, and there's connective tissue that goes all the way from your tongue to your feet, which is super fascinating. Let me find out what her name was. I would recommend listening to Carol Vanderstoop. She was on our show, and she's a myofascial function person, and she's my go-to when I refer people to this type of work. I'm just scrolling through our Instagram here. I'm trying to find this lady because she was really interesting. She was up, I think, in she was up somewhere in Utah or there she is. This is her here. Sarah Hornsby, myfaceology.com, and I think this was episode, what episode was this? I don't remember. Sarah Hornsby, myfaceology.com. So I hope that I think that's her. So I hope that helps Mia or Ria. I'm sorry about that. I hope that helps. Miss Hill says, I have to watch this again because I've noticed my right eye's been jumping. I'm not sure if the cause is food related or computer. Miss Hill, I hope you're using blue blocking glasses if you're using a computer, or I hope you're using Iris Tech. We have both of those in our store. But make sure you're at least using Iris Tech. That's like a $15 software program to reduce blue light from your monitors. But the key with that, though, is that it also reduces flicker. And the flicker is a tremendous tax on your nervous system and your overall eye health as well, along with your mitochondria, because it creates oxidation and stress, this constant flickering that human beings were never designed to be exposed to. So make sure all of you guys use Iris Tech. This is what I use. Reduces the flicker and it reduces the blue light to 100% from your computer screen. That's available on biocharge.me if you guys are interested under the light section. Let's see. Potato was recommended by the guys Center for Deuterium Depletion. Yeah, we had them on the show. They were cool. Big Fat Mama. Jezzy by 47 says, here's something I tried last night for the first time. Rub apple cider vinegar onto a cotton wool ball and rubbed it into my head and the back of my neck. My sinuses have never been clearer than they are today. Interesting. So tell me how you did that. Did you rub apple cider vinegar on your nose and then the back of your neck? That's interesting. There are vids on YouTube about Buteyko. Yeah. Rhea, so what did you say? Can you link this video? I think you're asking for the Sarah Hornsby. Let me find out. If you go to Google, I use DuckDuckGo now. Extreme Health Radio, and then I'll take off the .com space Sarah Hornsby. She was episode... let's see. You know what? You know what I'll do is I will make this a video available, or the actual podcast available on iTunes tonight. So let's do that. So for many of you that are subscribed on iTunes, what I do is we release 2 shows a week right now that are sort of current. And then the other 3 or 4 days a week, we release archived, our best of content on iTunes. So if you're subscribed to us on Stitcher, iTunes, any of those places, you're getting basically a show a day, whether they're an archived or a new episode. And I'll make a little note and add Sarah's show to the production line tonight so that you guys can check that out, Sarah Hornsby. So if you're subscribed to us on iTunes, you'll see her show coming up tonight. I usually do it every night around 10, 11 o'clock p.m. Pacific time is when we release the new shows, whether they're free or if they're back. Drink apple cider vinegar and hemp. Thank you for the link. Yeah, cool. No problem, Maria. I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys being here. It's super cool and fun to hang out with you guys. And I appreciate you guys listening so much and being a part of what we're doing. It's really cool. And I love hanging out with you. I see a lot of the same names. Big Fat Mama, Rhea, I've seen you before. Whiskey Ace, Darren Farrell. Lots of cool people. Temple Health, Angie, I've seen you a lot too. So it's really cool to have Midnight Gardener, I've heard you too as well. It's cool. Yeah, so it's fun to hang out with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you again for supporting us. I really appreciate it. That means so much to me and to our family that you share and support our show. If you're on Instagram and you see our stuff, please share it and please tag us. That way it kind of gets the word out and helps us a lot to grow the podcast and to be able to do this kind of work more. And finally, I wanted to tell you guys about the Extreme Health Academy. Come join us over there. There's a free 2-week trial. Use the code EHR14 and you'll get access to everything that we have going on over there. And my favorite part about it is just the forums and being able to share some of these insights, because there's a lot of people that talk about different aspects of health, right? There's like the fitness side, there's the light water magnetism side, there's the biohacking side, there's a mineral piece with Morley Robbins talking about iron, copper, and how these things interplay with each other, and magnesium. There's the EMF side to things. There's a non-native EMF. There's a blue light side. There's so many different aspects. There's a spiritual, emotional connection. And there's so many different things. The dental component, man, talk about one of the things on a physical level that's one of the biggest movers of the needle is your dental and oral pathology. There's so many aspects to not just building a lifestyle that's healthy, but building an environment that you can heal in, but also that ties together all these different things that we talked about, 647 shows. And I just love bringing all of these pieces together. So I'm not fully in the camp of Dr. Jack Kruse and everything that he talks about with light, water, and magnetism. I'm not fully in the camp of Morley Robbins, although I'm heavily involved in his work. I'm not fully in the camp of any of these people. I like to take the best parts of what I think they're right about and bring them all together. And then it's fun to get to share with all of you guys. So I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly researching and studying and involved in all of this stuff. And how can we live an optimal life? How can we do that in a toxic environment with NPK fertilizer, with chemtrails, with toxic amounts of iron, with blue light overload, with all of these stressors in our life, from toxic family members to toxic chemicals in our beds to all of these things? How do we put it all together and start building a foundation that supports our mitochondria, supports energy production? Because it really does come down to how well can your body make energy. If your body can make energy, it can get on top of viruses, fungus, mold, parasites, non-native EMF, rogue cancer cells that don't have the ability to turn off cell replication through apoptosis. Like, if you have the energy, your body and immune system can work properly. And I feel like there's a lot of people that are in these camps and they're hyper-focused in these camps, and they don't look anywhere else. Matt Blackburn is a guy that really does a lot of research, and he's in all these different camps too. And I just feel like it's important to take the best pieces of these things, tie it together with spirituality, with personal development, with growth, and to be able to facilitate an environment that helps all of us to gain an insight. Sometimes when you listen to a show like this, it's like just one thing. All you need is one thing that you can take and really apply to your life, and it just changes your entire life. It's like you read a book, you might just get 1 or 2 pages or 1 or 2 insights from reading that book. And so this is what I like to do in the Academy. Like, we have world-class courses in there, amazing workshops that we're doing every single month. In fact, this month, January of 2020, we're going to be talking about MMS with Carrie Rivera, and we're going to be talking with her about her work with autism. Going back to what I was talking about before, she is responsible for our first strike on YouTube. Thank you, Carrie Rivera. So I have her to thank for that. But she's working with MMS and children with autism, and she's doing some incredible work there. And so we're going to do another radio show with her to talk further about that. But one of the things we're going to do is explore how she's doing that, how she's treating people. And she's going to share with us in a live workshop how she's treating children using these substances in a very practical way. And these are the types of things that we have every single month in the Academy. But aside from all that, I just love hanging out with you guys in the forums and connecting with you and trying to bring all these pieces together and to give you some insights that you may not get anywhere else, because I don't feel like there's a lot of people tying all the pieces together. There's so many pieces of health, but there's only it's like what David Wolf talks about. Like, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of herbs, but you only really need to focus on the top 3 or 4 or 5 of them. There's hundreds and hundreds of different ways to cause the body or allow the body to heal, right? But there's only 5 or 6 of them that really move the needle. And this is what we talk about in the Academy, because, why work with herb 392 when you can work with the most powerful herb? Why work with different things that aren't going to affect your biology or your physiology when you can work on things that facilitate an environment that causes your body to grow and to work properly? So I love putting all these pieces together, and this is kind of what I do. So if you guys are interested in wanting to join the Academy, I'd love to have you as a guest for free for 2 weeks. Just go to extremehealthacademy.com and enter the code EHR14, and we can hang out. And we're constantly changing, constantly adding different pieces to it. A lot of ideas and a lot of improvements are going to be coming soon to the Academy. We've got an entire health database in there that categorizes everything. We're going to be adding a search feature in the coming months where you can search and find different aspects of what you're looking for. So it's really an awesome place. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, there's links down below, and the code EHR14 will give you a free 2-week trial to come check it out. Most likely you'll get an email from me congratulating you and welcoming you to the forum. So come check us out. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that show, episode 647. We'll put everything that we talked about. I'll also put Dr. John Sarno's books as well on extremehealthradio.com/647 under the show notes. So just remember extremehealthradio.com and then 647 if you want to get the actual link for today's show. So love you guys so much. You guys are amazing and awesome, and I really appreciate you just being a part of everything we have going on. It's super fun, super cool. And it's just a great honor to be here. So I'm glad to be back. We're going to be back on Friday with Nathan Walls. We'll talk about vaccines. So that's going to be an interesting show. So much has been going on. So much has been happening about vaccines that if you're not in this world, you just, in this sort of alternative health world, you're not aware of this stuff. But there's so many changes coming, and it's frightening what's going on. So he's in New York, and he's going to share about some of the things that have been happening with him coming up this Friday. So if you have a friend that is interested in this type of subject matter, have them join us on Friday at 10:45 Pacific. So Love you guys all. Thank you for your support in the Extreme Health Academy and biocharge.me and getting products through our links. That really supports us. We have discount codes too on many of the products that we promote and support. So I really appreciate that a lot. And if you also want to support us, you can go through our Amazon link that's on the homepage at the very bottom of extremehealthradio.com. Think of us anytime you search on Amazon or buy anything there. Please go through our link and we'll get a little commission, and that helps support the work. We also have our Patreon too. If you guys want to give us a couple, $3, $4, $5, even $1 a month, that would be tremendous. But I would just prefer you guys join the Academy. That way you get something for it. So, but all of you guys are amazing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a part of what we do. We really appreciate it. Love you guys all. See you on Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. You guys rock. I love you guys, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse